right, this is the opponent statement for the community issue review. Let's start out by, could you tell us who you are and what your background is in this community?
Hi, my name is Ron Madrid. I'm a 21-year resident of State College. I'm employed at Penn State University as administrator. I work at the Applied Research Lab. I'm currently, and have been for the last 10 plus years, president of the Homes Foster Neighborhood Association. I'm a three-time loser for candidate for Borough Council, and one-time loser candidate for mayor. So my involvement in the community and my fluency in the issues, I think, are somewhat unique in that I am involved in the community, and I make it a point to stay involved because I think we live in a wonderful community with a bunch of wonderful people, and I don't want our community to die. And the budget of the borough and its impact on its citizens and residents is a cause, or could be a cause, of a dying community, because a community without revenue to pay for the goods and services to support our quality of life is a symptom of a dying community.
Thank you. So let's move on to some of the background. Can you tell me briefly how you would define this issue that's going to be reviewed by the group of panelists?
Well, inflation or indexing of property taxes to some calculated or determined or made up index is only part of the problem. The basic problem is borough revenues are growing borough expenses are growing while revenues are shrinking or flatlining. And so that delta between the increased expenditures and decreasing revenues per se is the issue. Now, because the borough only has three real sources of revenue, being property taxes, earned income tax, and land transfer tax, that's the main components of our revenue by state law, that means that when they need to increase revenue, they can only go to those three sources. Because our community is losing single-family homes over the last 10 to 15 years, that means as those single-family homes migrate out of the borough and lower income or renters come into the borough, that means they're not going to be paying much into that earned income tax pool, so that pool is shrinking. The land transfer tax, because we're only 4.9 square miles and there is very little, probably 3 or 4 lots in the entire borough that are quote undeveloped. That means that unless redevelopment occurs, we're not going to get much land transfer tax, and many people stay in the community, so the turnover of housing doesn't really occur very often. So that land transfer tax isn't a great component, which leaves property tax for those residents of the borough who own property, both business owners and homeowners, to pick up that burden, and that is difficult because of the demographics. We have a lot of people under 25 and a lot of people over 55. Those over 55, a great majority of them are retired, so they don't pay into the earned income tax pool, and they are on relatively fixed incomes. So when they're stuck with an increase in property taxes, like it's happened over the last 2 years, that's a significant strain. And so what happens then is longtime residents who love the community, love State College, would never want to move, now have to say, is this next tax increase really going to be that straw that broke the camel's back and really force me, though I don't want to, really force me to consider to sell my house that's probably much larger than I need and move to a smaller place closer to my children in a warmer climate, et cetera, et cetera. And so that in itself is sad, in that we're losing gifted and wonderful people leaving the community, and hopefully younger families will move in. But the median price of a single-family household in State College is rather high. So unless you work for the university and have a steady job, you're going to have with prices in $200,000, $300,000 range on the average. That's not an average house that many young couples can afford to move into, especially in our more established neighborhoods.
Okay. And so I think you've already touched on some of these, but we understand that you're very familiar with the history of State College and a lot of the background on this issue. Can you summarize some of the main points that you've provided in the
Well,
position statement?
Well, the council, this is not new to council. This has been brought up. If you review the annual budget submitted by the borough manager every year, go back as long as you want, and that first 2 pages of the executive summary, he usually puts down that he had put down prior to 2014 that again expenditures were growing longer, faster than revenue, and that we were going to hit an impasse in the 2015-2016 timeframe, which in fact it did occur. So it's no surprise. It should be no surprise to members of council who've been familiar with this issue for a long time, and for them to say, "Oh dear, oh my, well, what can we do? We tried." Now their trying is, we work with the Pennsylvania Municipal League, who is a lobbying organization for all municipalities in the state, and they are our voice in Harrisburg to convince the assembly, both houses, to allow us to levy increased taxes. That's a great statement, and it's like, well, we did it. But the Pennsylvania Municipal League has many issues and priorities, of which this is just one. Okay? From my perspective, this is our one and only priority, because without increased ability to raise revenue, we don't care if there's a tax on sugary drinks. We don't care if there's a problem with arbitration between public service unions and the state. We don't care about carbon tax or more bike-friendly grants or whatnot. Okay, those are all great causes. Okay, but they pale in comparison to the ability of a municipality, a place like State College, to maintain its goods and services, to support its residents, and to support the quality of life. Okay, I'm not saying the other ones are less important. I'm just saying they're not as important as this one. And from my perspective, saying, well, we'll give it to Pennsylvania Municipal League, then we can become one of many, 100 or 200 different voices saying, this is our most important, this is our most important. They take a poll and say, okay, our top 3 are boom, boom, whatever it is. And if this is one of them, fine. If it's number 1, if it's not number 1, it's not fine as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. So would you describe this also speaks to the main reasons why you're opposed to inflation-based tax indexing?
Right, what that says is it's a very easy then the council and staff can say, well, and as I pointed out in my paper, it's inflation-based tax increases. It's a statement. There's no documentation. How are you going to figure that? And I provided you the table from the Bureau of Labor Statistics on the annual rate of inflation for the last 11 years. And it averages just a little over 2%. So if they're saying, well, if we went that route, we would determine on what last year's rate of inflation was. In some years, it was a negative. Oh, so we're going to cut taxes? Oh, no, we can't do that because the expenditures have gone up. Okay, well, 2%. Well, we need more than 2%. So you're only going to raise them 2%? Well, that's not what we're saying. So again, unless you define that index, and to me, for someone to come up with this very simplistic statement means to me is they would rather just say is we're going to calculate an index, and that's what we're going to peg the property taxes to. So for instance, if the state retirement board comes in 2016 for 2017 and says, you know what, to pay for the retirement costs of those employees in the borough that participate in the state retirement system, you're going to have to cough up another 10% more on your retirement income. Okay, so that's one metric. And then there's increase in expenses and other functions that the borough supports. That's another thing. So it comes out to say, okay, we need an extra $1 million in next year's budget. And so that would equate to, so that would be, quote, the inflation index. Okay? So it's not based on some externally standardized one. It's one that they've created themselves. So then they don't have to deliberate at all. Every December they come in and say, okay, we estimate in the next year X amount of revenue and Y amount of expenses. We're going to make the revenue equal expenses, so that delta is now the increase in property tax. And then they can say, when we go to them and say, how you can't do that? Says, well, that's what everybody agreed upon. We consulted. We had a working group. People, citizens got together. We discussed it. We decided, and it's it. And very simple way to do that. And I don't see that as not governance. That's just a cop-out. Okay? Every budget is a fight. Should be a fight. Okay? Every budget should be based on zero-based budgeting, not last year's budget plus 3% because we just kind of build that in there. It should be zero. We start again. Okay, we know what it is. And then everybody, every function of the borough fights to get their piece for the next year. Because it's my money, not their money. Okay? And what is often left out in the discussion is, again, based on the demographics and the makeup of the residents of the borough, every decision that the council makes, they should be asking themselves, is this decision going to make somebody leave the borough? And they don't do that. They kind of go, it's either some social cause that they're in favor of or some pet rock they're in favor of. Oh yeah, let's do that. And the rest of us are going, why would you do that? I mean, again, I'm not saying it's not a bad idea, but there's other ways to do that, you know. Again, maintain my quality of life, and if possible, increase it. Don't cut goods and services, and make sure we get full value for each dollar that we pay. That should be the priority. Again, not something that's ginned up because it makes them feel good.
Okay. Are there any additional documents, resources, or pieces of information that you would suggest that panelists familiarize themselves with as they review this issue?
Again, I would look at the previous year's annual budgets and just look at that. And just look at the front end where they discuss, you know, the challenges for the coming year. That kind of puts things into perspective. I would also ask them to see the boroughs every year in right at the beginning of the year, January, February, March timeframe. They decide and endorse the priorities for the Pennsylvania Municipal League. And if you look over the last couple of years and look over the deliberations, you'll see that self-determination or the ability to levy taxes, they might spend like 30 or 45 seconds on that issue and then spend an hour on some other issue or other issues that they think are socially, environmentally, or are more important. Okay, and again, that seems to be out to kilter. I mean, this is the priority. Okay, if you want me to move, keep on doing what you're doing, and I'll move. Okay, and you're going to lose my earned income, and I think you're going to lose a valuable resident along with some other people that really care about the community. So, and what am I going to do with my property? Well, because I live on West Beaver Avenue, it's not the optimum place for a single-family home. I'll probably have to rent it.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.